Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay and welcome to Dunsfeld. Now the Prime X and the Adios Pro 2, the latest and greatest from Adidas. Now which one of these is actually better? Now one's technically illegal for races because it's got a 50mm stack, but I think only illegal in kind of pro races because who's going to be checking your stack height in the average race? Now one YouTube commentator, Brandon, I remember him saying that he thought the Prime X was the fastest shoe in a straight line for 5k. So I thought I'd come here today to Dunsfeld, not do my usual loop, but along the main road here, which is a pretty flat loop, just out for a mile and back again in each shoe and see how I feel in that respect. I won't push it too hard today, probably at my marathon pace. I need to decide actually if I can even do the London Marathon, because as you've probably seen, I've been training for track races all summer and racing a lot, and so I'm good for like a sub 5 minute mile for 2 minutes, but a sub 7 mile for 26 miles, maybe a somewhat different proposition. So anyway, I need to get a bit of a feel for this pace anyway, just to see if I've got any hope of doing this. Otherwise I may decide that better save my legs for another day. So I've already warmed up, interestingly, in the Endorphin Speed original version, because I saw a video from Ed Budd last night where he thought the Speed 2 was somewhat disappointing. Well, to be honest, I can't really notice any difference between the two, and in that run it was very hard to detect which ones I had on. I have to do a run with one on each foot later on and see which one's better. Anyway, back to the Adidas shoes, and I think I'll do the Adios Pro 2 first, and then warm into the higher stack. So maybe not the most scientific test because I haven't really got enough daylight to run too much here. So I think what I'll do is I'll do the out and back, maybe control the out a bit slower, and then come back cruising at the same sort of speed. I've also got the Stride foot pod on today. I've heard that the power from Stride now appears in your Strava link, so I was keen to test that out as well. I haven't worn the Stride for some time, and on a flat course with no wind, you could argue it's a bit of a waste of time anyway, because pace and power are going to be pretty much exactly the same in correlation. Anyway, let's get on with this run. Okay, just did a few strides at the Adios Pro 2, just got myself ready, get the heart rate up a bit, so I'll crack on with this now. It's about about 2.5 miles, so out and back. Okay, in a bit. Okay, riding the Adios Pro 2 done. As ever, it's a bit quicker than I thought I was going. It's quite good actually, 2.3 miles, average speed of 6.16 a mile. And I forgot there was a segment going out, so I think I was only a second behind it, so I think I beat that one. They got me into a nice little groove, so it was pretty even pace. It was slightly easier coming back, although I had slightly tired legs now, so I'm going to give myself a nice little rest between the two. I've got the Prime X's on. I'll just do a few little strides in them to get a picture for the camera, and we'll get into it. So it's getting a bit dark, so just about enough time to do this. But there was a few parts where I had to run on the pavement, although it's a country lane. Gets a bit busy, that road, so it's going to be interesting in the Prime X, because the Adios Pro was kind of wobbly enough as it was when you had to sort of go on a slightly bumpy pavement, but we shall see. This road here is I'm on now for these strides. It's not part of the course, but this is fairly flat, a few little gravelly bits and a little mini speed hump, so interesting test for the Prime X. Let's do a few strides in these and then we'll get on with the proper run. Okay, strides done in the Prime X. They instantly feel higher and a bit wobbly even on the flat ground, just a little bit of gravel, so this is going to be interesting, but I'm in its best habitat, I would say, a straight-ish flat road. It's not dead straight and I can't pick up the exact smooth surface, but it's pretty good, about as good as you're going to get, I think. Good enough for this test. Felt pretty good in the Adios Pro, so got to now run that same sort of speed, haven't I? Which is going to be interesting. So we'll see if I can set my watch on race activity from the previous run, so see if I can get myself pacing about right, so then I can see what the heart rate's doing and stuff like that. Obviously it's going to be slightly harder the second run, but in previous Shoeoffs, when I put, say, the next percent on last, actually heart rate's gone down and speed's probably, if anything, gone up. So it was actually quite hard not to actually go too slow. So I'm not sure that I'm going to find this in these. My gut feeling that the Adios Pro 2 are the better racer. They're lighter, just although they're a bit wobbly, they are relatively more nimble, I would say. But yeah, this is the ultimate max cruiser, I think. And yeah, so we shall see. So a nearly dark historical interlude. Well, not quite. This is actually a public telephone that is actually still working, so it would seem. It says they're thinking about removing it, but that was last August, so it still seems to be here. So an extra advantage it does afford is actually to give you some vague amount of light to talk about the Prime X, and in the words of Sester Moore, very interesting. Bizarrely actually ran that slightly quicker, although it felt like a lot harder. It felt like it was a lot heavier, or they are a lot heavier for me. I think it's about 330 grams in these, something like that. I'll get the exact weight, and it's about 290 in the Adios Pro 2, and you can instantly feel that weight. And also you can feel that every stride, if it's not quite an exact landing, you get this real instability. And when I had to go onto the pavement a little bit, even though it was a flat pavement on a largely flat road, every sort of single little stride that was a bit off, you could sort of feel that. I only ran there 2.3 miles, and you think, well, if you run that for a full marathon, are your legs and ankles going to be really trashed after that one? So I'll have to have a look at the stats and the heart rate, but yeah, it was fast enough. But is it really a shoe designed for that one? Well, jury's out. I mean, maybe the stats don't lie, but we'll have a further look later. But yeah, I think in terms of like, what did I feel most comfortable running fast in? That was the Adios Pro 2. What did I actually run faster in? Well, yeah, that's a bit of a different question. So we'll get a look at the spreadsheet and come back later. See you later then, bye. Hello everybody, here's my spreadsheet of what I did. So a fairly simple one tonight, just an out and back in the Adios Pro 2, 1.15 miles basically out and straight back again. It was very, very slightly uphill going out, but it's pretty much as flat as you're going to get round here. And whatever wind there was slightly helping going out, and consequently had the sort of the reverse of the conditions coming back. It was just very slightly downhill, but a very slight headwind. So effectively, I felt the two halves were pretty much even themselves out. So I was aiming for marathon pace and ended up running somewhat quicker than half marathon pace. In fact, I was edging probably more towards 10k speed. I think probably even it would be my 10k speed. So interestingly, the way out 14:26, average heart rate 138 with a maximum of 145, and that's a 6:17 pace. Now the segment going out was 7 minutes 16 with an average heart rate of 136, and coming back 6:59. When I changed into the Prime X later, I had 13 minutes between the two, although the 13 minutes did include some strides for the filming and just to keep my legs loose, and also to make sure that I was sort of fully recovered. I think when I started the second one, I did notice that it was, my legs were tired, but also I did notice that the extra weight in the Prime X. So I think in a way I was trying harder going out in the Prime X. And in fact, I actually managed to run that 6 seconds quicker. I had a Strava course record with a 7:16, and I betted it with a 7:10. Not perhaps the most competitive of segments, to be fair, but you can only beat in inverted commas who is there. So I think that although it was quicker, it was slightly deceptive, because as you can see, my heart rate there was 4 beats higher, and I did feel I was working quite hard. And the Prime X are a bit disconcerting, that every little step that's not quite an exact landing does make you sort of feel like wobbling a bit. And over 2.3 miles, it's not so bad, but I just wonder how that would be, you know, after 10 miles, 20 miles, even for a full marathon, if you ever were thinking of doing one in that. Coming back, and interestingly, I did exactly the same time in both runs, but my heart rate was again 4 beats higher. Not much to see again in the power. The power didn't actually make it to Strava after all, so that was a bit of a false dawn. I'll have to find out why that is. But I did actually get some air power in the Prime X, but didn't in the Adios Pro 2, so not quite sure what's going on there. Cadence was pretty much the same, and the metrics for ground contact time and VO pretty similar, I think. Still got a bit of a left lean, a bit of a left hip problem last week or so. Didn't really affect me too much in this, but it just feels a bit stiff. Leg spring stiffness was a lot higher in the Prime X. Not quite sure why that is. Answers on a postcard if you've got any ideas. So perhaps an honourable draw here. I would still say even though technically I was faster in the Prime X, but that did cost me 4 beats high, didn't it? Although I was tired legs. So one of those ones you're kind of thinking, well, yeah, I think the Adios Pro 2 would be the one I would reach for out of these two if I was going to do a race, but as a very good fast cruiser, the Prime X does work, but this massive caveat that it's just so unstable. So if you're not running on a course that is pretty good grounds and not too many corners. I mean, I noticed when I did the U-turn in the Prime X at the far end, that was a real struggle. You know, you could feel the wobbliness there. So obviously you don't do too many U-turns in courses, although park runs have quite a few, so even the faster ones. So that's another factor. But yeah, there's, I mean, okay, it's only a couple of seconds to turn around. General scheme of things is not too important. But, you know, if you're doing lots of sharp left turns, right turns, constantly running on a bend. I mean, the Prime X I think would be terrible on a track because you'd be spending more than half your time going around in a circle. I hate to think how that would feel on a track. Don't think I'm probably going to try, or maybe I might do just for a laugh. But anyway, so I still think the Adios Pro 2 is the better bet, but the Prime X is certainly worth considering if you can get over this high stack and the extremely instability of it. But yeah, interesting concept, but is it really worth that much money? I don't think it's really as good as the hype might suggest. I don't think it's the fastest shoe in a straight line by a long chalk. I think if I'd have put the Nexus Sense on in this, I would have found this somewhat easier. Although having said that, when I did the Adios Pro 2 versus the Nexus 2, they came out pretty similar as well. I think it perhaps goes to show that all these shoes are now pretty good, and it's coming back to basically how good a runner you are, which is basically how it always should be and how it probably always will be, because yeah, going at about 6:15 pace average is not exactly Kipchoge sort of pace. You're probably doing like 4:15 in this sort of session. Just brings it home to roost. But yeah, felt good, and doesn't really tell me about my marathon aspirations because it's more like a 5k 10k session, but at least I'm sure I've got some fitness for this sort of stuff. Anyway, hope you found this interesting, and look forward to seeing you on the next one then. Bye.